The Panthers move one win away from another trip to the finals, while the Hurricanes conference finals futility continues. We've got Stanley Cup playoff action to talk about right now on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place. It's a good recap of the night in the NHL. We are available 7 days a week and wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He's Shukri writes a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast. Together, we're here to discuss all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Shu, we're just a little bit closer to figuring out who's going to play for Lord Stanley's Cup for this season.
Meow. Maybe the meow is not appropriate, but the theme of the night was when you have raw flesh meat in front of you, you pounce. And did they ever pounce tonight down in Sunrise? Woo! Hell broke loose in that third period. Let's get right into it like we're about to pounce on some chocolate cake. Let's go.
Well, save your roar for a little bit later. We are going to preview game 3 between the Stars and Oilers. Also going to play a little game of plus minus, but of course we're leading off with game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals in Florida as the Panthers were hosting the Hurricanes. Panthers came in with a 2-0 series lead, having won both games on the road by scores of 5-2 and 5-0. Florida now on home ice for the Hurricanes. Crucial game and a goalie change. Could that help Carolina turn things around? No. If it was, then she wouldn't have been meowing earlier. Florida with 5 goals in the third period to break open a 1-1 game going into the third. Final score, Panthers 6, Hurricanes 2, and it's a commanding 3-0 series lead for the defending Stanley Cup champs. Let's get a report on the winners. We check in first with the host of Locked On Florida Panthers.
Hurricanes provided a challenge for the Panthers in the first 40, but in the final 20, the Panthers were just that much better. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast here from Amerant Bank Arena as the Panthers defeated the Hurricanes by a final score of 6-2. And the Panthers were already without Sam Reinhart in this game. Eetu Luostarinen was sent off for a game misconduct for boarding Jackson Blake. And the Panthers, although they got that kill, the Carolina Hurricanes tied it in the second period, and it was 5 goals in a 9-minute span for the Panthers that broke this one open. Multiple goal scorers on the night, Nico Mikkola and Alexander Barkov. Barkov didn't have a single shot attempt until the third period, and the Panthers continued to play tight, frustrate the heck out of the Carolina Hurricanes, and are now 1 win away from the Stanley Cup Final. We'll break all this down and more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
And we thank Armando Velez, who was wearing his church clothes for that report. Your host of Locked On Florida Panthers, and a lot to react to there. A lot to react to in this game. If you didn't see the game, it certainly was a lot closer than the final score might indicate. At least through 2 periods, it was a good game. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to touch on, Florida's depth. They did not have Sam Reinhart in this game after that hit from a Sebastian Aho. So the guy who fills in for him scores the game-winning goal in Jesper Boquist. I mean, that just goes to show you just a little bit of an example of what the Florida Panthers have. One of your top players is out, put another guy in off the bench, he scores the game-winning goal. Obviously, a lot of different players have been doing a lot of different good things for the defending Stanley Cup champs.
Jesper Boquist as part of a 3-point night was just incredible. I mean, as you said, like Sam Reinhart is out with the injury. He's day-to-day. Insert Jesper Boquist. And this is part of the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs is that you just never know who is going to step up and win or how. And this Florida Panther team is an example of exactly that, of you don't know who is going to step up or win. And not because the who is a bad thing, but because it can come at you in so many different ways and so many different waves that it's like pick your poison. But I actually want to start talking about the second period because, as you said, and correctly so, this really was a much closer game. The second period that the Hurricanes played, in which they tied it up at one apiece, I thought that in all honesty, that was their best period of this entire series by bar none. I thought that at that point, the Hurricanes finally were playing their brand of hockey. They were able to get the power play involved, Stankoven scoring the game tying goal on the power play. And I thought that Carolina was really starting to, have momentum swing their way. And that was until the third period. The third period, you're thinking, okay, you finally got positive momentum at the end of the second period. You carry it into the third, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, it was like, oh boy, here we go. What are we gonna do? Jesper Boquist makes it 2-1, and then it didn't just stop there. Alexander Barkov was a monster. He had a 2-goal game. And then, of course, defenseman Nico Mikkola, he scores twice. And like, it was just like, oh my God, once the dam opened, good luck trying to close it. Now, no amount of seal tape was going to stop the water that was already gushing out of the dam. And the Florida Panthers, this is about their team that makes them so incredible to watch. And even if you are a person that hates the team or you're a fan, you're like, this team comes at you in ways that they just don't stop coming. That third period was an indictment in regards to there was nothing that the Carolina Hurricanes could have done defensively any differently. And frankly, the Florida Panthers continue to just show why, even though they're having the success that they've had, but they play you so tough, and it doesn't matter what you do and how you try to adjust. They're going to keep coming. And one night it could be Barkov, another night it could be Sam Reinhart, who, by the way, he looked as if he was walking without a limp in the pregame, or when he was reading the lineup to the team. But man, this Panthers team, they're one win away from going back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the third straight year, and they're pretty much a locomotive team. They are a team that just cannot be stopped.
And their defensive core, we knew, was pretty solid coming in with the likes of Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad. But for that defensive core to have 16 playoff goals now, with Nico Mikkola scoring 2 in this game, I mean, the defensive offensive production is through the roof. I mean, it's
unbelievable. I agree.
Unbelievable, really is the great word to use. So that's the winning side. We said this was basically a must win for Carolina. Clearly that didn't happen. Let's get a report from the Carolina Hurricanes side with the host of Locked On Hurricanes.
The Carolina Hurricanes lose 6-2 on Saturday night to go down 3-0 in the Eastern Conference Final. Surprisingly enough, they were actually pretty good for the most part in the first 40 minutes of the game. Got a couple power play goals, went perfect on the PK. So, hey, special teams got a lot better than what we saw in the first two. And like I said, you played great 40 minutes of hockey. Made it 1-1. And then the third period just absolutely, demoralized this team. You give up 5 goals, get blown out for the third game in a row, and now you've gotten outscored 16-4 with Game 4 on Monday. Gotta give all the credit to the Panthers, man. They're taking the Hurricane system and playing it a lot better. They're just outchancing them, getting the quality shots in, quality goals, just mentally, physically, just, taking it to them. And now the hope is just win. Just win. At this point, don't even worry about winning the series. Just at least win one game. But it'll be interesting to see how it comes out on Monday with Game 4 in Sunrise, where the Hurricanes hopefully at least win that one to keep their season alive.
And thanks to Zach Martin, the host of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes, for that. I said it after Game 2. I'm not really worried about Carolina winning this series. I'm wondering, are they going to win a game? And at this point, obviously, it's not looking good. Head coach Rod Brindamore decided to change things up. He replaced Frederik Andersen, who you could make a strong argument was the best goalie through 2 rounds. They go with Pyotr Kochetkov, and it worked for a while. I mean, he looked pretty good. He was making a couple acrobatic saves. He was kind of flailing all over the place, but, the bottom line is keep it out of your net. and he did it through 2 periods, but kind of like the rest of his team, it just that the roof caved in on him in that 3rd period.
And that was the thing that I thought that was jarring, if you will. And the reason I thought it was jarring was because the first 2 periods, I thought Carolina played the type of hockey that they have struggled to play in the first 2 games of this Eastern Conference Final. And I thought that, as I mentioned in the previous portion of this segment, that the 2nd period was by far the best period that they played in this series. And I mean that. Like, and I thought this 3rd period that the Carolina Hurricanes, they were going to be able to continue. But once I saw Boquist give the Panthers the go-ahead goal, like which obviously turned out to be the game winner, which to make it a 2-1 at that time, I'm thinking, now Florida is gonna go back into the shutdown type of game where it's like an anaconda snake, if you will. The Panthers game is in which that they get a lead, they'll slowly wrap its body around your neck and slowly squeeze until you can't breathe. That's literally the Florida Panthers. They are like an anaconda on the ice. So I think, if anything else, the Carolina Hurricanes, that once they allowed Florida Boquist to take the to take the lead, it was like all hope was pretty much lost. Even though 2-1 lead is not insurmountable against this Florida Panther team that just doesn't let you breathe. And the way that the Hurricanes have struggled offensively in this series, scoring a grand total of just 4 goals, yeah, it was pretty much game over at that point.
So that's now 15 straight losses for the Hurricanes in conference finals play.
Good Lord.
Only 4 teams have ever rallied down 3-0 in Stanley Cup playoff history to win a series. The last team to do it was the LA Kings back in 2014. No team's ever done it in the conference finals before, but for Carolina, now it's all about trying to snap that 15-game conference finals losing streak and just win 1 game to avoid being swept and worry about it from there. You can't win 4 in a row. You can only win 1 at a time. So it's, can they win game 4? But it looks to be a very much an uphill climb for the Carolina Hurricanes. Which Stuart Skinner is going to show up for the Edmonton Oilers? We're going to discuss that and more. That's next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money is easy with your partner as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. Over in the West, we've got Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals coming up on Sunday. This one will be in Edmonton as the Oilers are hosting the Dallas Stars. Stars rally to win the first game. It ends up being a 6-3 final, but they had 3 power play goals in the 3rd period to win that one. Oilers, 3-0 shutout win in game number 2. What are we going to see in game number 3? Before we get to that, though, we didn't have a chance to play the post-game video from our guy, Nick Zareris from Locked On Oilers after game 2. We're going to play that now, get his thoughts after Edmonton had that 3-0 shutout victory in game number 2.
Sometimes in the National Hockey League, it's not necessarily what the underlying numbers look like, it's what the final score looks like. And on a night like tonight, the Edmonton Oilers took care of business in a clinical road game 2, winning 3-0 on the road with contributions from depth players like Brett Kulak and Connor Brown. Frankly, that's not what you expect when we're talking about an Oilers team that's led by players like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But the effort tonight was really, really an answer to the way they fell apart in game number one. The defensive effort was significantly better, even though they conceded more scoring chances, the high danger chances, expected goals, a lot more even tonight in game two than they were in game one. The Oilers were able to put together the type of effort that's going to translate well with more of a defense first lineup. And frankly, going back to Edmonton 1-1, this is where the Oilers needed to be. And with an opportunity to seize the lead in Edmonton, as an Oilers fan, you have to feel pretty good going into game number three. For everything you need to know about the Oilers, be sure to check out Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts.
And thanks to Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers, for giving us that. I think the biggest question for Mishu going into game three, which Stuart Skinner are we going to see? Will it be the guy who has 3 wins, all coming by way of shutout? Or is it the guy who's allowed 20 goals in his 4 losses? I don't know the answer to that. I don't even know if the Oilers know the answer to that, but he is coming off a shutout. We'll see what happens, but he really is a wild card in all of this. When he's been great, he's been great. And when he's been not so great, they've obviously lost. So a lot on his shoulders. We'll see how it goes in game 3 for Stuart Skinner.
I might have to sneeze at some point. So if I sneeze, it won't be because of the pollen. It'll be because I'm terrified of what we may end up witnessing from Stuart Skinner in game number 3 in Edmonton. So pardon me early. So all jokes aside, you're absolutely right. Which Stuart Skinner is going to show up? In fact, I'm going to do everybody a favor right here, right now. And I'm going to quote the great Eminem, the great rapper Eminem. For those of you that don't know, somehow, some way, Google him. May I have your attention, please? Will the real Stuart Skinner please show up? We're going to have a problem here. Like, if you know the song Slim Shady, then you understand the reference, that particular verse. That is what the Edmonton Oilers are basically going to be wondering going into game number 3, because here's the thing. They've had 3 shutouts in this past 4 games. And all 3 of the Stuart Skinner's wins have come via the shutout. But here is the problem now. The problem and the concern that I have for the Oilers as they return home is their penalty kill. It has been atrocious. It is currently at 64.1%. And they've given up 14 goals in 39 shorthanded situations, which is why, for me, I think the problem, or not the problem, but the concern doesn't just lie solely with Stuart Skinner, but it's in front of him, especially on a penalty kill. How will the Oilers address that in game number 3 remains to be seen. But I think they're going to have to really do a better job of continuing to stay out of the box if you are the Edmonton Oilers. And I do think that that in game number 2, in conclusion, the Oilers, they did a much better job protecting the puck. And I thought that they did a good job on the penalty kill in terms of killing. They had 2 power plays against him in that game. They killed both of them, which was good news. They need to be able to continue that at home. As once they get everything going in that direction, I think Stuart Skinner should be fine. He should be up to the task coming up in game number 3 in terms of standing on his head.
As for the special teams, as you said, it's the power play unit for the Stars against the penalty kill unit of the Oilers. In game 1, advantage Dallas, 3 for 4 on the power play. In game 2, advantage Oilers, 2 for 2 on the penalty kill. So clearly, as that matchup goes, maybe the game goes as well. Rope Hintz slashed on the foot by Darnell Nurse. Big controversy after this one. Hintz off the ice, was seen in a walking boot after the game. I would think it's unlikely he's going to play in game number 3. As for Darnell Nurse, he got a 2-minute slashing penalty. Pete DeBoer, the head coach of the Stars, making some headlines afterwards, saying if that was Connor McDavid being helped off the ice, no doubt in his mind, a 5-minute major would have been called. Agree or disagree with Coach DeBoer?
I agree, but it screamed of sour grapes. Like, listen, the reality is that, like, look, he's not wrong in what he said, but the timing of it was like really, like, what are we doing? Yes, protect your players, stand up for your players, but I just thought that it was just kind of like really, like what are we doing here? Like, what is you saying that accomplish exactly? It literally accomplishes absolutely nothing. So for me, in my mind, I think that Peter DeBoer was better off not saying anything in that regard at that point, even though I get that he's standing up for his team and it was the right decision. But in terms of that particular comment, I thought it was like it was uncalled for, frankly.
Yeah, and it wasn't the most vicious thing I've ever seen on the ice in a hockey game, but
Yeah.
there's no protection on the top of your skate. If you've never worn hockey skates before, there's just literally no protection there. So he was hitting a place where it's almost like hitting you on your bare foot. I mean, it's not, but it's close enough. There's just nothing there, but laces to protect you. So well, I would say, I would also say he might be right about the Connor McDavid thing. But that's also sports. I mean, leagues do go out of their way to protect their stars because those are the guys who people tune in to watch. Obviously, in the NFL, we see the extra protection on the quarterbacks. So that is a part of sports. It's not something that's new. But I think Pete DeBoer trying to just see if he can get some calls maybe later on in the series with some of those comments. Don't know. We'll see who steps up for Dallas if Rope Hintz is out, who's their top line center. Other guys, though, that have been pretty quiet so far this postseason. We've talked about Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Matt Duchene, just one goal so far. So we'll see if any of those guys can get going. Obviously, the series tied 1-1, a crucial game 3 coming up in Edmonton. And by the way, for those of you that may not know, on this Memorial Day weekend, this is an early start time on Sunday between the Oilers and Stars. If you're tuning in and you're wondering, usually it's an 8 p.m. Eastern time start. This is at 3 p.m. Eastern time start in Edmonton. So if you're going to be watching the game, adjust your schedule accordingly to this early start time. We have a special edition of Plus Minus that's coming up next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better chance to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the action with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next big bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same game parlay? How could a $200 in bonus bet add to your excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Shu, we have some time for a special feature. It is time for another edition of Locked On NHL Game Night Plus Minus. We've got a couple of questions we're going to throw at each other, and I'll start off. Here you go. Here's my plus minus for you. Of the 4 goalies remaining in the conference finals, only one of them is amongst the top 20 highest paid goalies in the NHL. That's Sergei Bobrovsky. He's number 2 on the list. So plus minus, teams are better off not paying big money for a goaltender.
I think it's an interesting question, in both a challenging one, because I don't think the answer should be no. I think they should spend big money on goaltenders, because here's the truth. Goaltenders are the hockey version of quarterbacks. You live and you die by your starting goaltender. That's just point blank. You don't win the Stanley Cup without your starting goaltender. And if anything, the last 5 years have taught us, and obviously this goes longer than 5 years, is that you need your starting goaltender to perform. And I think when you pay for top tier goaltending, more times than not, it has paid off. I mean, not always. I mean, obviously, Henrik Lundqvist is one example, but in terms of the ultimate payoff, Sergei Bobrovsky comes to mind. But I do think that teams should spend money on goaltenders, because ultimately they are the ones that's going to help lead you and get you the Stanley Cup.
So you're saying it's a minus. I'm disagreeing with you. I'm saying it's a plus. I'm not paying big money for my goaltenders anymore. Aiden Hill, Darcy Kemper, Jordan Bennington, Matt Murray. Those are all guys who are not elite goalies. Those are all guys that didn't make the big bucks, and you can still win a Stanley Cup with those guys. Now, the counter argument is Sergei Bobrovsky, Andrei Vasilevsky. Those are big money guys. Those guys have won cups as well. But if I'm going to spend my money, I'm going to get a goaltender that's good enough. I think the state of goaltending in the NHL is at a high level. Even if you get a good goalie, that's still good enough to win a cup. So I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. If you look at some of the big money guys, they're not even in the Final Four. Connor Hellebuck, Igor Shesterkin, Jeremy Swayman. So I'm going to try and spend around $6 million for my goaltenders, not the $10, $11 million of a guy like a Sergei Bobrovsky. By the way, real quick trivia, the number one goalie this year as far as average salary, Carey Price, final year of his 8-year, $84 million contract. He made $10.5 million this year to not play for the Montreal Canadiens. All right, your turn. Give me a plus minus.
Out of the final 4 captains left in the playoffs, Alexander Barkov will have the most points out of the 4 captains by the end of the conference finals, plus minus.
I'm going to say minus on that, although it certainly looks like he's going to at least have 5 more games to play with. But he's got 12 points so far. The other 3 captains, Jordan Staal and Jamie Benn, you can throw those guys out. 2 points and 3 points for them. His competition is clearly Connor McDavid, who has 20 points on the season. So he's got 8 more points already than Barkov. It's looking, well, at this point, we don't really know. Is he going to be able to qualify for the final or not? So if Barkov makes the final and McDavid doesn't, Barkov's got a shot at it. But I think with at least 3 more games for McDavid, he's good enough for at least a point per game in those 3 games. That would give him 23 points. I'm putting my money on Connor McDavid, and he could still make the final. If he makes the final, he's definitely going to be it. So I'm going to say minus on Barkov. I'm going to say Connor McDavid is going to lead in points when it's all said and done.
I was also leaning towards minus in terms of the question for the mere fact that for similar reasons, but for my reason mainly is just because I think that even though like Connor McDavid hasn't been the prolific goal scorer like so far these playoffs, but he's still found other ways to produce points. So I think that Alexander Barkov, I mean, he's done the same as well, but obviously McDavid has done it at a much more higher rate. So I'm gonna bank that McDavid is going to be the captain that finally that actually leads the last 4 captains left in points. So it is your go for the plus minus.
All right. Of the 4 teams currently in the conference finals, Florida, Carolina, Dallas, Edmonton, plus minus, one of those teams is going to miss the playoffs next season. It happened this year with the New York Rangers. The Rangers were in the Final Four last year, missed the playoffs this year.
I'm going to say plus. One of the 4 teams in the Final Four right now is going to miss the playoffs next year. And if I was a betting man, I would probably put my money on Carolina missing the playoffs next year. Especially if they lose to Florida, I think there could be changes. I'm not saying that Rob Whittemore is going to get fired. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm talking about in terms of personnel, because something has got to give for this Carolina team in which that they haven't won a conference final game since 2006. So I do think that Carolina could be one of the Final Four teams this year that could potentially miss the playoffs next year.
I'm going to say plus on that. Actually, no, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say minus. I'm going to say minus on that. I know there's a shocker every year, and the Rangers certainly were a shock this year.
Massive.
They didn't even make the playoffs. But I think all 4 of those teams are good enough to be back in the playoffs again next year. Carolina, if you had to bet on one, that might be a good bet. But again, we know someone's going to shockingly disappoint, but I don't know that any of those 4 teams are going to be so disappointing that they all one of them misses the playoffs. So I'm going to say that they are going to make the playoffs next season. One more from you.
Last one for me is this one's going to elicit quite a strong reaction, and I didn't know it already. The Hurricanes will seek to trade Sebastian Aho if they potentially lose. I mean, instead of saying potentially, if they in fact lose to the Florida Panthers, plus minus.
I'm going to say minus on that. I understand the question in that they haven't gotten close to the Stanley Cup final. If they in fact get swept, or even if they win one and get out, it's still, big deal, one win. Sebastian Aho has a full no movement clause, so there's that. He's not going to go anywhere unless he asks out, which is possible, I guess.
Right.
I would be pretty surprised by that. So I don't think the solution to changing things up in Carolina is trading away your best offensive player. Carolina's got $31 million in cap space coming up, projected cap space this season. I think they're going to make a strong run at Mitch Marner. They tried Mikko Rantanen. They want to get a marquee player in that market very, very badly. I think they're going to take a huge swing at Mitch Marner. I don't know if he wants to play there or not, but they're definitely looking to add. I don't think they're looking to subtract. So I would say minus on the Hurricanes trading Sebastian Aho.
I'm going to go minus as well. I thought in itself that it would be an interesting question to ask. But, I mean, we've seen shocking trades in the NHL within the last 12 months. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility. So like I figure why not. But in terms of Aho being traded, I don't think it's likely, but I would never say never considering, as I mentioned, we've seen some crazier things happen in this league in terms of trades. I think Aho stays put in Carolina.
All right, so we are still waiting to get our first team into the Stanley Cup final. Florida Panthers certainly got a lot closer with their win in game number 3 to take a 3-0 series lead. Looking forward to talking on tomorrow's show about Stars Oilers big game 3 with the series tied at 1-1. You got a taste of some of our local experts. Make sure you check out the Locked On show of your favorite NHL team to get all the latest news and reactions. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Shukri Wrights. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.